All right, Josh, good morning.
Hey, how's it going?
Very good. I'm glad we could finally connect and get everything working on both of our ends.
Yes. That's the downside of working for a technology company is that technology like just tries to stick it in your side every now and then and be like, haha, we're not gonna work today.
And then on my end, just trying to get the whole thing to work, and then when it does work, it shuts down on you in the middle of a conversation.
We're doing an excellent job together.
But you know what? What matters is that we're here now and talking, and we can see each other. So I guess we should get started. I know it's a
Yeah.
busy morning for you. Um, Before we get started with the questions, can you share with us a little bit about your career journey to this point, especially
Yeah.
you coming to New York and your current role at Verizon?
Yeah, no, it's a good story. I came to New York pretty much as the recession had just passed its peak. I had no job, no friends, no place to live. My education is in finance and economics, and there were no jobs to be had in that field. So I got into like digital marketing, which seemed like a low hanging fruit that a lot of people were trying to get hired on by companies as freelance, either digital marketing consultants or social media consultants or freelance this or that. Started doing that, eventually got into event and conference management for technology companies, and but still continued on that with that interest and passion for growth marketing, and eventually started a company called Strategy Hack that matched enterprise companies with startups around the shared experience of growth marketing, so they could learn from each other. The resources and the experience of the enterprise company and the scrappy, get it done, measure everything, and be nimble qualities of a startup. And that was a really good time. I met you right around that same time
Yeah.
as I was also running an organization called Startup Grind, which is in about 400 cities around the world. And I manage the New York City chapter with a couple of friends. And that's when you and I met, and that was great.
Yep.
I wound down the company Strategy Hack after several years. My partner and I went off to go do different things. And Verizon was building out their open innovation group. And they gave me a call and said, we heard that you're doing really good things in the community. Want to know if you want to come see about doing them for us. And so I did. And that was about a year and a half ago, almost 2 years. And we've since focused all of our innovation on 5G and building out the ecosystem of companies and developers and technologies that will eventually live on 5G technology.
That's incredible. And just the fact that you're able to really connect and parlay both your interest and experience from marketing and the event planning and really to turn that into just another part of your career and really learn more about startups and technology and applying all those different things at the same time is really incredible.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so I figured in terms of questions that we would start first with accountability. And from your work with entrepreneurs, I'm sure you've seen many of those folks develop ways to keep themselves accountable to achieve their business goals.
Yeah.
How could students and recent graduates from college just starting their careers do something similar to achieve their career goals? What would you suggest from what you've seen and experienced?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. I think the first step is organization and knowing from the getting all the way down to the basics, like where you're supposed to be and when. And there are tools that can help at every phase of this, every stage. Something like learning how to use Google Calendar effectively, or whatever calendar application you decide to use. I mentor college students right now. And it boggles my mind how many of them just flat out tell me they don't know how to use a digital calendar. I don't really understand that.
That's crazy.
So I know, right? I live and die by my calendar.
Me too.
Yep. And so just having that as a starting point so that you know where and when you're supposed to be is a really good first step in being accountable. The second is having your knowing the things that you are working on. In industry, sometimes we call them work streams, and knowing all of the different facets of projects that you're working on, whether that's your schoolwork, whether that's looking for a job, whether that is projects within the job that you have, whether that's making progress on side hustles and side projects. It's knowing where you're trying to go and setting measurable goals. And I think agile product management method, agile product development, teaches us to break things all the way from very high goals and break them successively down into smaller goals. And until eventually you have to-dos that are fairly easy to accomplish that ultimately get you step by step by step to where you want to be. And understanding what those things are that you want to be focusing on, and having them written down is another great step in accountability. If we're talking about being accountable and helping and creating a system so others can help you stay aligned on your goals, a lot of people like to get a mentor or some sort of a career coach or a progress coach or things like that. You can do that. You can go the formal way if you have one identified of asking somebody if they can be your mentor, if they have time to be your mentor. A lot of times somebody will want to be, but just won't have the bandwidth to take that on. Another method is to create some sort of an accountability council, and it can be very informal. But it's basically identifying the top 3 or 4 people in your life that you look up to, that you feel inspired every time you're around them because they're doing amazing things as well, and sending them a note saying that you'd like to keep them informed about the progress that you're making, and you'd like to open up that line of communication. And then it's just making sure that you have on your to-do list to create, whether it's weekly or bi-weekly, just simple reporting. And it can be as simple as an email, or it could be something in a slide deck. Pro tip, if you're not very good at making PowerPoint slides, I would start getting good, especially if you want to get into enterprise work, even if it is on the innovation side. We make a lot of slides. I try my hardest not to make as many as possible, but we do have to make them. And sending just regular accountability updates, even if the other person hasn't necessarily asked for them, laying out that expectation of, hey, I'd like to send you progress reports of the stuff that I'm working on is a good first step. But then every week or every 2 weeks, without being asked, send them a quick update. Hey, this is the stuff I'm working on. This is the stuff I've accomplished. This is what's coming next. And this is where what my mid and long-term goals are. And just to get their feedback. And more often than not, they'll hit reply and they'll let you know that they what their thoughts are on the work that you've been doing, on the progress you've been making, and that can be a really great way to get people interested in the work that you're doing to help keep yourself accountable.
That's incredible. And I definitely agree in terms of using a calendar to keep yourself accountable. That's from me personally, that's really how I've been able to keep myself organized, running so many different things. And then also keeping the mentors, the people that I've identified, as you mentioned, as folks that I want to stay in contact with, people who I know can help me, sending a monthly email saying 5 points saying this is what I've done, this is how I've been able to progress since last time, and then the last line, how that person might be able to help me and my initiatives, and just to keep them involved and keep them engaged. I think that's really important.
Yeah, I think a crucial step there is also the back and forth, and having an understanding that you also might able to provide value to that other person. Sometimes they might be a peer, sometimes they might be somebody who would qualify as a mentor, but either way, you're still able to provide value, and being on the lookout and having an understanding that the other person has stuff they're working on too, and there might be ways that you can help them out, whether that's through scouting out events that they might be interested in, or when you identify speaking opportunities, wherever you see opportunity for the other person to also build his or her skills and progress and things like that as well. That can be it's really important back and forth to keep both parties engaged that way.
Definitely. And I can really underline that point by mentioning that one of the biggest things with me keeping relationships going is just referring them to events that they would want to go to, and just pressing that forward button in your email. It's been an amazing tool, and it doesn't take much time. It's just you read something and you just forward it off to them in a few seconds.
Yep, I agree.
Awesome. Um, you kind of touched on finding mentors, but then getting them to invest in you and invest their time and their effort is just a whole other deal because, as you mentioned, a lot of people are busy.
Yeah.
Um, and then bring it back to entrepreneurs. We've seen this a lot from founders. They spend a lot of time and effort to get mentors, investors, employees, and customers to buy into their vision.
Mm-hmm.
What, from your experience, what are the top three things that students and recent grads should do to get other people to invest their time, their effort, and even their network into them? What are those three things from your experience?
Yeah, I think the first one is passion. Being excited about the stuff that you're talking about is job number one. When I am at events or if I'm talking to founders and they're not excited about the work that they're doing, then I wonder how much passion they're going to be able to put into that in the long term. Because being a founder and starting a company, it's a long haul.
Oh, yeah.
And there are some really good high points and there are some really bad low points. And if you don't have that energy and if you don't have that passion for what you're working on and what your idea is and how it's going to improve people's lives, then it's going to be really hard to get people to buy into that vision. I think the second is having an understanding of the value proposition and understanding what it is you're actually trying to do. The world has enough apps. If you're making an app for app's sake, I don't think anyone's going to be interested. So it really does need to be able to solve a problem. And there's plenty of problems to be solved.
Oh, yeah.
And there's a whole lot of new capabilities that are constantly evolving and coming to fruition. 5G is one of them. The number of ways that something like 5G is going to revolutionize the digital landscape is going to be immense, and no one can really foresee it right now. It's actually part of my job is to predict it.
You got a crystal ball.
I mean, I wish I had one, man. It would make my job a lot easier, but it wouldn't be nearly as fun. No, I love what I do. I think the third is having a process, especially when you are talking to people who have either been down this road before or they have invested in companies before, or especially if they're enterprise and you're looking to partner with them or get involved in their corporate venture capital program. It's having a process and being able to outline and communicate very clearly how you're going to get from point A to point B to C to D. Because if you show up and you say, this is my vision, and you're excited about it and you have a really great value proposition and they say, great, how are you going to get there? And you're like, I don't know, it's just going to happen. They're not going to give you the time of day. And so I think passion, vision for the value proposition, and then having a process that you've laid out, even if that process changes over time, and spoiler, it will, having it laid out and saying, I think these are the steps that I'm going to have to take, and this is how I'm going to do them. These are the people that are going to need to be stakeholders, and this is how I plan on engaging them, is crucial. Having all three of those things is going to be really important if you want to get people to pay attention to your idea.
Definitely. So let's recap: passion, vision, process.
Yep.
Get it all written down, making sure it's all organized. It's really those key steps and those details are the most important parts.
Yeah, and by vision, I really do mean on that value-driven vision is what I would call it.
Great. I'll give you an example in terms of what we're doing here with this accelerator, in terms of coming up with a process. That's my notebook right here.
Yep. Digital tools are great, but you just can't beat pen and paper. I carry one around with me all the time.
Yep.
Except for right now, I don't have it here in this phone booth.
That's great. The last point that I thought was important to emphasize, especially with you and from your experience seeing all these things with entrepreneurs and also now on the corporate end, the idea of pivoting.
Mm-hmm.
Especially when we're talking about people's careers. So most of the people watching this are just starting their careers. They have an idea or a sense of what they want to do, but not necessarily are tied to it.
Mm-hmm.
But they could easily be swayed if things kind of derail and go off the tracks.
Yep.
So just like just like life and like I guess our original recording session yesterday, things don't always turn out the way that
That's
we
right.
want. So how can students and recent grads use those challenges and those roadblocks that they run into and really convert them into the opportunities that will get them to where they want to go in their career?
Yeah, I think every roadblock is a teachable moment, and here's the tricky part: is no one's going to actually teach that lesson unless you're willing to learn it. And so when you hit a roadblock that prevents you from doing something that you thought you had planned out, in my opinion, that's a reason to be happy, because it's telling you that that your process might have had a couple of hiccups in it and needs to be refined. And so that gives you more of an incentive to refine that process, but also shows you what's going to work and what's not going to work. And sometimes you find that the value proposition that you thought you had really isn't there. And that comes down to things like making sure that you have thought long and hard about who your users are, what their pain points are, where they find value, and how they end up consuming that value. And so with roadblocks, I think it's important to not necessarily double down, because sometimes the roadblock is there telling you that this just isn't the way to go, and that there is a different way to achieve that value-driven vision that you have. And as long as you can keep that energy up, then you can find different ways to either go over the roadblock or go around it, or sometimes, like you said, pivot entirely and decide that it turns out that this value that I thought was here solving this pain point actually isn't going to do that. So I still want to solve this pain point, so I'm going to go find a different value that's going to help address that. And I think if you're approaching these endeavors from the perspective of solving a pain point and not just providing a service, I think that those roadblocks that pop up, they're generally going to be a good thing, and they're going to show you what ultimately is the most efficient way to go.
Exactly. Sometimes those challenges are really what get us onto the track, and we don't even realize it in the beginning. We just think that it's just a real pain.
Yeah.
Oh, great. I figured that the best way to end our session today would be for you to share with us you really incredible insights, but also just from your what you've experienced, from your knowledge and from what you've seen, any other advice that you have for students and recent grads that are just starting out, what would that be?
I think meet as many people as you can and follow up with as many people as will give you their contact information. If you are of the persuasion that you should go to things like events and dinners and hand out your business card, you're sorely mistaken, and you might not get a whole lot of follow-up. My recommendation is always to gather business cards. And that puts you in control of the conversation. Yep. That puts you in control of the follow-up. And then sending a message, sending a note shortly after, and being able to provide some sort of value right off the bat. If you're connecting on LinkedIn, send a note that says something like, "Hey, it was great to meet you. I'm really looking forward to keeping in touch." And be sure to list out the event or the thing that you met them at or how you met them, because people, especially if you're just starting out in your careers, the people that you're going to tend to meet might be more established in their careers, and they're pretty busy. And I can tell you that I have received emails from somebody who said, "Hey, it was great meeting you last week," and I have no idea who that person is. I have unfortunately forgotten, because I've met 25 people since then, and it can be difficult. So always give people as many little breadcrumbs that can lead back to you, and that'll remind them that why they met you and why they gave you their contact information in the first place. And I think as you start to build your relationships with those kinds of people, making sure that they are value driven, that you're doing what you can to help them out, will solidify in their minds that you are a valuable person to have around. Because the people that you meet, whether you're looking for a job, whether you're looking for new customers, the people that you meet are generally not going to be the people who can give you that new job or who can plug you into that new pipeline of customers. But if you can start showing enough value to those people, then they will refer you to the people who have what you're looking for. That's exactly how I ended up in this particular role at Verizon. I was doing my best to meet people and plug people into what they needed, make introductions for people all around the community. And word got back when the company was building out that open innovation arm. Like I said, multiple people referred me back into the person who was doing the hiring and said, Josh is a great guy who's doing some great work in the innovation community, and you should talk to him. And that's exactly what happened. And so I am living proof that you can drop down in a city with nothing and start meeting people and start providing value throughout the community. And as long as you are staying aware and keeping and keeping other people in mind about how you can help, it will come back, because you will build up that reputation as somebody who is very valuable to have around. And people, especially these days, are willing to pay for that. The job market is really tight right now. Yeah. And as long as you have, as long as you've been developing the skills and you are developing that value-driven mentality, I think that everyone is going to be just fine.
Definitely agree with you. So when we write our textbook, I'm just going to have your picture on it saying that you're a case study.
I mean, yeah, go for it.
Well, Josh, thank you so much for taking the time to share your story, your wisdom, your knowledge with us. I really appreciate it. Actually, doing this twice means a lot to me. So thank you so much.
No, it's my pleasure. Happy to help, and let me know how I can continue to be helpful.
Definitely.